Hey Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So sometimes I like to give a little behind the scenes to the listeners so they know the struggle of producing a podcast on a weekly basis. So Shannon and I were just kind of laughing about the fact that our initial schedule for this podcast interview was like 6 or 7 months ago, and we've had to reschedule for multiple reasons for the last 7 months. So here we are finally getting together to have this conversation.
Yeah, it took a while.
It took a while.
But we're here. We made it.
I blamed myself mostly and apologized because I've had kind of this nagging cold. Those listeners who are with us every week probably have been hearing a little bit of cold in my voice for the last couple months. But that's just the post-COVID reality of the world. And here we are getting it done. Shannon and I are finally together.
Yes, you sound great. You don't sound like you have that nagging cold.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Shannon is a Massachusetts hairdresser who focuses on photography and videography education. And before we started recording, I was getting a little behind the scenes of what it's like to live in Massachusetts through wintertime. And I asked her simple questions like, do you have to shovel snow so you can drive to the salon? Like, how does that work? And luckily, she has a whole family of guys who do that for her.
I do. Yep. My husband takes care of that when we get snowstorms. And then I have four boys, and they help me out with that too.
How old are your boys?
So my oldest one is 8, and then I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-month-old.
Okay, so they're kind of, even 8 is probably a little young to be shoveling snow. However, he probably goes out there and tries.
Oh, he's big. He's a big
Oh,
8-year-old. Yeah, he's like
good.
the size of a 12-year-old, and he's super helpful.
Wow. Okay, lucky you. So the snow is not a problem. All
No.
right. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, Shannon, for the listeners, Shannon focuses on photography and videography. And another little behind the scenes was her complaining about how in Massachusetts during the winter time, the lighting isn't so good. It gets dark at like 4 o'clock. So that is a struggle that as a Southern California guy, I don't really realize some other parts of the country have to deal with. But before we go into all the details of photography and videography, let's learn a little bit about Shannon. Shannon, where are you from? How did you get into this business and all of kind of your origin story?
Okay, so I'm in Massachusetts, as you said, New England. So yes, our light ends at 4 o'clock in the wintertime, and it's hard to take pictures. But I have some tips for that. Um, I started off as a hairstylist. So I've been a hairstylist now for about 12 years, I think. And when my
Why
first son
did
was born,
sorry, why did you become a hairstylist?
I became a hairstylist because I love working with people. I love helping people. That's my nature. That's what I do. So
Did
hair
you
was
ever
just
do anything other than being a hairstylist?
not at that point. At that point, I
Okay.
was just a hairstylist. But
Okay.
when I graduated cosmetology school, I was 18.
Ah, very young.
Yeah. So now I do everything. When I say I do everything, I'm a licensed massage therapist, I'm a photographer, I'm a
Oh,
videographer. I do a lot of things.
wow.
So when my son was about 8 years old, I mean, he is 8 years old. I'm sorry. When my son was born, I took him to take like newborn photos. I wanted pictures of him. And when I watched the people taking the pictures, I just thought it was the coolest thing and I really wanted to learn how to do it. So I invested in a camera. I spent like nights not sleeping, just learning about photography. I found it so fascinating. And it was at the time that like Facebook was really big, but nobody was posting pictures yet. They were kind of just posting like words. Like everybody would have some like caption about their day. And I started
Pre-Instagram?
so I think Instagram was just starting out too. Like this was in like 2012, 2014ish in that area.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Instagram had just started. So we were posting like awful pictures of our food and, something pretty around the house that we liked. And, you scroll back and they're all awful.
Hmm.
um, but I, like, every once in a while, I would post pictures of the hair that I did. And I noticed they weren't good pictures, but I noticed that every time I posted a picture of hair, it was the only one that would show up on the feeds because nobody else was doing it. And people started reaching out to me like, she's the hairstylist. I want to book with her. She's the girl that does hair. I want to book with her. So I quickly booked a really great clientele of people that I loved and that I knew. And I started bringing my camera to work. And at the beginning of bringing my camera to work, my coworkers thought I was nuts.
Yep.
You know, you have this big clunky camera and they're like, why are you doing that? Like, I think they found it kind of annoying and obnoxious, but I brought it anyways because I loved it. I didn't care what I was taking pictures of. I was taking pictures of the front desk. I was taking pictures of my clients. And so
when you're doing something new, oftentimes there are things, especially with peers and, you know, people around your environment, oftentimes are not accepting of what you're doing, even if you know that it's the right thing to do. And that stops some people from doing new things. But not everybody. Didn't stop Guy Tang. Oftentimes I bring up that story of him becoming Guy Tang in the salon and how everybody else around him were kind of talking behind his back about how annoying it was that he was doing it. You have the same story. And I love to beat this drum because it happens time and time again. When you're doing something new, oftentimes it's not accepted by the people around you. But if you like what you're doing, just keep doing it.
Absolutely. And I'm not one to, like, if somebody tells me I can't do something, then I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to make it work and I'm going to figure it out because I don't like it when people tell me I can't do something or try to limit me. So there was one specific case where I had taken a client and I was just bringing her on the salon and I was taking pictures. And one of the girls that I was working with was like, why do you have to be so awkward? Why are you doing that? And she said it in front of my client. And I remember my client kind of being like, oh, it doesn't bother me. It's fine. And when my client said that, I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to keep taking pictures and I'm going to keep bringing my camera. And this is really important to me. So I started posting more. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the best pictures. I'm not just going to bring my camera. I'm going to now try to take really great pictures. So ever since then, I think probably like 2012, 2014 was when I was discovering it, figuring it out. 2016 to 2018 was when I discovered that there was a gap in our industry and that people did really great work of hair, but then they would take a picture of it and it looked awful. So even the best stylists couldn't market themselves because that's where people were starting to look for when they were looking for a hairstylist. They wanted to see their pictures. So I was like, well, I know how to take pictures and you do good hair, so I'll help you figure out how to take pictures of your work. So I actually started teaching updo classes and I was like, this is so much fun. I love like teaching updo classes, but my favorite part and the attendees that would come to my classes, their favorite part would be the photo taking part where I would teach them how to take pictures. So after a couple of classes, I realized, you know, honestly, this is my favorite part too. And I think that I have a lot of knowledge that hairstylists don't have. Like, we're not taught to be photographers. Now we're kind of being taught to be photographers, but at the time, nobody was teaching that, and we didn't have the knowledge of a photographer. So I started teaching it, and it really just, like, I don't even feel like I had to do much. Like, it just kept catching wind, and everywhere I would go, people would be like, oh, you're the photo girl. Oh, can you teach me how to take photos? So it just kept going. And then I started a Facebook group. We have, I think, like 23,000 people in it, and
oh my God,
we're just sharing photo tips and like looking at each other's work and saying like, how can we improve this? And how can we collaborate? What can we do? So it's a really fun place to be and I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. So Facebook groups, I know my wife is big into Facebook groups. I somehow have just completely ignored the whole Facebook group culture. So if somebody wanted to join your group, how do they do it?
So they just go to Facebook and they search hair photography and it'll pop up and you'll see a picture of somebody taking pictures of hair, and it's run by me, so you should see my name, but it's pretty easy.
That's the name of the Facebook group is
it's called Hair Photography. Yep.
So you were the first. I mean, I'm sure there's many Facebook groups that are about hair photography, right? Like,
I don't know. I haven't gone seeking them out, so I'm not sure.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You're like the OG hair photography Facebook group. Okay, so you run it, but is it like a private group? Does somebody submit a request to be a part of
Yes.
it, and then
Yes.
you have to go in there? You're like the admin, and you let them in or not? Yeah, I'm sure you let them in bulk. I mean, 23,000. You're not.
So I actually don't. So yes, people have to request. I have people helping me now that are helping
Wow.
me accept people into the group. Some of them are other hairstylists. Some of them I've hired, and we go through every single request, and
And look for what?
we ask questions, and we also ask for emails so I can contact them. So the
Shut
questions that we
up.
ask, yeah, it's pretty cool. I ask, like, what do you want to learn out of this group? So that way I can help create content or share things that further interest them. And then we ask like where they're from, if they're licensed. I really just want it to be licensed stylists, and I
Right.
don't want random people coming in. So we're pretty good about
So
making
you're
sure.
focused. You're very much curated and focused on licensed hairstylists. So if somebody was not a licensed hairstylist, they were just a client, let's say, and maybe they liked different kinds of photography, you would not let them in. You would say kindly, I'm sure, I'm sorry, but this is for licensed beauty professionals
Yep.
only.
Yep.
Wow, how
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of other beginner photography groups, maybe not hair photography, but there's a lot of other photography groups that people can join. So this one is really for licensed stylists to go in and connect with other licensed stylists.
So you have you keep a database of all the emails of the 23,000 people, and you probably send them information outside of the group, probably, right? Wow,
Yep.
how interesting. Okay, so the other people. So in a Facebook group, everyone can post, or do you also curate?
They can all post.
Okay.
They can all post, but we do have rules. So we have a specific post every Friday that goes out that says, this is Feature Friday. You can post your favorite work from the week or something that you want constructive criticism on. So that's where that goes. But all throughout the week, it just has to stick to hair photography. Sometimes somebody will try to post like, oh, here's my beautiful balayage, which we love seeing, but there's 15 other hair groups that they can post their beautiful balayage in or ask tips for hair color in. It's not that kind of a group. It's a group just for sharing hair photo tips and connecting with other people that are interested in it.
Interesting. And so do you have the power to get rid of a comment? Like if somebody puts an ugly comment?
I have to say, we don't really get ugly comments, but yes, I do. If it does
Okay.
come up and if it does happen, I would probably remove it and address the person via message and talk to them.
So how much time per week do you spend managing this Facebook group?
Quite a bit. I would say, honestly, it's probably like 5 hours a week between me and the people that help me.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the people who help you are just volunteers because nobody makes money on this.
So some of them are.
Okay.
Some of the girls that are admitting the group are hairstylists. They're licensed
Okay.
hairstylists, and they're volunteers. They're just people that are really passionate about it and have a lot of knowledge about it. And so I have asked them, I see that you're posting a lot. I see that you're really interested in this and you know a lot about it. Is this something you would want to do? And they say yes. And then I have a couple of VAs too that come in and help me, and I pay them to get through all the emails and accept people into the group.
VAs?
Yeah, virtual assistants.
Virtual assistants. Got it.
Yeah,
These are
yeah.
people maybe overseas that help?
No. They're all local.
Okay.
Like
But
in
it's
the
just-
US.
Got it. But you find them through one of these like gig sites?
Agencies. Yeah.
Agencies. All right.
Yeah.
See, we're learning so much. We're learning so much. Okay. So that's your Facebook group. Okay. So you've had this going for a number of years, and it's still going, and it's still growing probably.
Yep.
All right. So then you do this in addition to your behind the chair clients, right?
So normally, yes. I actually just left behind the chair.
Oh.
In quotations in
Yeah.
February.
Okay.
So that was my
no-
last month.
Wow. Tell us about that. It's like a quasi retirement.
Yeah. So I still have like a couple clients that I take here and there.
Of course, everyone's always got a
Because,
couple.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love doing their hair, and I
Right.
also want to be able to create content and take pictures with them and stuff. So I kept like a couple. But I just hit a point where with 4 kids and with growing this education, I had to cut down something.
Mm-hmm.
And after growing this education for like 4 or 5 years, I'm at the point now where I'm making enough income from it and busy enough where I needed to cut down. So I decided that, this is really what I love. I love helping people. I love teaching people. And it was time to leave. So
Very
February,
interesting.
I made the decision to be done.
Okay. So now you're full-time educating on photography and videography. So
Yep.
you have a lot of information, and we're going to reach into your brain and extract it for the benefit of the listeners right now. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you
Yep.
comply with that. I have your
I'm
signature,
ready.
your virtual audio signature.
Yep.
All right. So let's start with the most obvious thing. Okay. Hair photography. Give us what kind of camera to use? This has been something that's been a question that people have been asking for years. Do I have to buy an actual, big chunky camera, or can I just use my iPhone?
Okay, I could talk about this all day, but this is one of the biggest questions we get in the group too. So, no, you do not need to buy a camera. However, I use a Sony A7R3. I use mine for taking photos of weddings, newborns, portraits. So, as a stylist, that's not something that I'd recommend for a beginner. So, I have a list of like beginner cameras that might work better for everybody. A reason why you would want to get a camera is if you're trying, like if you have a really messy background and you're trying to get more blur into your background, you should have a camera. If you want to be able to control the tones of the hair, like you can get great pictures with your iPhone, but if you pull out your iPhone, like sometimes you're in a spot and it's like the hair looks orange even though it's a white blonde. And then you move and it starts to look green. But it's because our iPhones, they're not meant for hair photos. They were meant for scenery and for portraits. So when they're seeing red hair, the iPhone is like, oh, this is too much red. I'm going to cancel it out and make it green. So that's why that happens a lot. Why like redheads might look brunette or like they don't look accurate. So that's a good reason to have a camera, because your camera, you can adjust that yourself, however you see fit, however you want to do it.
For the listeners who are listening and they're like, God damn it, now I've got to buy a stupid camera. What is kind of entry level good enough cost?
Okay, so there's 2 that I really recommend. A Canon Rebel, like T7, T8. Those are really great cameras. And the cost of them is probably going to be under $1,000. With a lens, you're probably going to spend around $1,000.
Total.
Yeah,
Or in addition?
probably about $1,000 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it
And
doesn't come
depends
with
on
the lens?
No. So they do come with lenses sometimes. You can buy them with or without lenses. They come with lenses sometimes, and the lenses that they come with are fine, but they're not great. So if you're gonna get a camera, it's worth it to just spend the extra money and get a lens. That'll take like way better pictures.
Okay.
So Canon Rebel and then Sony A6400 and A6600. Those are like amazing for photo and video, and they're so small, so they're like compact and they work great.
What is the type of lens that you recommend that this person kind of entry level should buy?
Okay. So this is going to depend on their space and what their goals are, but my favorite is a 35 millimeter. 35 means that you can stand close to the person and take a picture like while touching their hair if you want. A 50 millimeter is great for somebody who's on a budget. So a 50 millimeter is like what you see with the eye. You can't quite touch the hair like while you're trying to take a picture, so you have to step back a little bit. And that lens is about like $150. So that one's probably the cheapest good quality lens that you're going to find. A 35 millimeters significantly more than that. And then as you go up, it's going to be more than that.
Got it. Okay. If you don't want to buy a camera, you just want to use your iPhone, are there not settings? I've never spent much time, but I know you can kind of swipe up and there's all sorts of numbers and ratios and things that I don't understand. Can those help you kind of salvage the effort of using your iPhone for hair photography?
Oh, yes. Okay, so there's so many amazing things that you can do on the iPhone. There's actually one on the newer iPhones. I think it's 12, 13, 14, 15. So if you have one older than that, it won't work. But when you're taking a picture, if you swipe up and hold on, I'm going to pull it up really quick. I don't know if everybody's going to be watching this, but if we swipe up here. Nope, hold on.
Listeners, you can watch this on YouTube. It's the hair game.
So if you swipe up
and
you click this.
Yeah,
this
that
right
is
here.
it looks like a cube or a square.
Yeah, it's like three of them.
Three little squares. Okay, and it says cool, and it gives you a tone scale and a warmth scale. She's showing us.
Yes.
She's showing us on the video that we're recording right now.
So,
you have to watch it.
It's hard for me to do this while I'm looking.
But yeah, we can see it pretty clearly. So it's like cool scale, warm scale. Got it.
Yeah. So basically, if your photos are too warm or if they're too green or too red, you swipe up. You see the three little squares. You click on it, and then it'll give you tone and warmth, and you can adjust if your image is too orange or too red, and you can get a better image. That's one of my favorite tips.
Okay. All right. So what does the iPhone tend to make you do? Go cooler or go warmer, or it just depends on the environment?
It depends on the environment and
the subject. It could be vivid colored hair or warm colored hair, and it just depends.
Yep.
Okay. So the iPhone is meant for quick grab and shoot, kind of all-purpose general things. You said landscape and portraiture, but you can, if you know enough, you can change the settings so that it might be good enough for great hair photography.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've taken your photos, whether it's with a camera or your phone camera. I imagine that there's 8 million apps out there, and I imagine you, Shannon Demont, have your favorite apps that you can't live without. Yeah. And before we get into the specific apps, are these apps necessary? Are they more necessary if you're using an iPhone than if you're using the camera?
Camera. Yep, just camera.
Yeah, what do we call those? In my conversations with Andrew Does Hair, who's also a photography nerd, we always DSLR. Is that what you call these?
A lot of them are not. So DSLR is like some of the cameras are DSLR, some of them are mirrorless. So mine is a mirrorless camera.
Got it.
You can just call it a professional camera.
Okay, professional camera.
Yeah.
So do you need the apps more with an iPhone?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. What are the best apps and what do they do?
My favorite app is Touch Retouch, and it can get rid of any stray hairs or anything in the background. So if we're photographing in a salon, sometimes like the lights will be up above and you want to edit them out, or like in a lot of salons, for whatever reason, whenever I'm taking a picture, there's like a fire extinguisher, a bright red fire extinguisher.
Of course.
So I'll use the app Touch Retouch too.
And by the way, the cities make us put those fire extinguishers everywhere. Not the salon's fault. Mm-hmm.
In the worst spots. So I'll use the app to just like use my finger, or I'll edit on an iPad with the iPencil, and I'll click on those spots and it just gets rid of it so perfectly. Like, you can use other apps for that, but I really think this one does it the best. And getting rid of hairs, you can like draw on the hair, and then you can like move the line to like be perfect on the hair and erase it perfectly. So I like to use that one a lot.
Okay. And now we're kind of venturing into and we're not done with the app conversation. We're going to go back to it, but I'm just going to mention the very controversial topic of retouched hair photos. Boom, boom, boom. It's retouched. Right? And then some people on Instagram, they'll be like, this is fake. This is retouched. What do you say to the anti-retouch people?
Every time we get into editing, this question comes up, so I'm glad you asked this. As far as retouching goes, in the photography world, let's step out of the hair world for a second. In the photography world, a photo is not finished until it is retouched. So now let's jump back into the hair world for a second. For whatever reason, I don't know if people felt weird about it. I don't know what happened here. People feel awkward about retouching their photos. Maybe it's because it wasn't originally part of their job. I don't know. This is something that's normal. And I think we need to edit ethically, of course. Like, you don't want to take red hair and make it look like something that it's not. But our cameras only capture things in 2D. They don't capture it in 3D like our eyes do. So sometimes we have to edit things to make it look like it did in real life, or to remove distractions. I personally see nothing wrong with that, but I think it's up to each person to determine what level they're comfortable with. But I will say, a lot of the people whose work you're admiring when you are scrolling through Instagram are editing their photos.
Okay, that's a good counterpoint to those anti-editors who are like, it's fake, and they almost feel threatened because when they finish on a client, when they look at their client, it doesn't look as good as the Shannon Demont photograph.
Yeah, right? I mean, there's some things that we can do to get there. Like, it might not even have to do with editing. It could have to do with your composure or your lighting, your posing. Right. Like, there's so many things. But when it comes down to editing our photos, like, this is happening everywhere. But again, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. Like, you don't want to have someone come in asking for icy white blonde when you can't create that. Right. People are going to figure that out. People are going to discover that. So just keep it ethical and keep it what you know is real.
Word. Okay, back to the app conversation. All right, Touch Retouch was your first app that you named. What's your second?
Yeah. I would have to say my second is probably PicsArt.
PicsArt. How do you spell it?
Picsart. Yeah, PicsArt. Lightroom is one that I use a lot too.
Okay, what does PicsArt do?
So PicsArt I use to desaturate. Like, if somebody has like a purple shirt on and I want to keep it within my brand colors, I'll desaturate their shirt. Or if I can't remove that bright red fire hydrant in the background, I'll desaturate it. So that way you just can't see the color of it anymore.
You'll make it white?
Usually like gray.
Okay.
Yeah, usually like gray.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on what my background is.
Yeah. And inevitably there's going to be somebody who's going to be like, that's an illegal fire extinguisher in the background.
Oh gosh, I know, right?
It needs to be red.
Yeah, seriously.
Right,
I will
PicsArt.
I'll take backgrounds and I will darken the background if there's like a distracting background or if I want the hair to contrast more. So I use it a lot for that. Yeah, I think just mostly black and white and making the background darker. And then I like to use Lightroom. Lightroom is one of my favorites.
I know Lightroom.
You know Lightroom?
No, I do know Lightroom. I haven't used it in the longest time. Remind me what Lightroom does.
So Lightroom I use for all of my galleries. Like, again, if I'm doing weddings or portraits or whatever. But they have an app on your phone that's just like easy. You can use it to remove things if you want. I don't usually use it for that. I usually use it to select things. So like, let's say, like right now my hair kind of looks yellowy, right? I'd say, like, based on what I'm wearing and based on my lighting, it doesn't always look yellowy. I would consider it not yellow. So if that was capturing in an image and I didn't want it to, you can actually select like the yellow pieces of your hair and desaturate just those, leaving all the other colors the same. So sometimes I'll do that in Lightroom. I also typically use it for cropping images or just making like the basic fixes, like brightening it up. They have an option to check the white balance, which looks like a little tool dropper, and you click on it and then you bring it to like here, I would bring it to like a gray area or a neutral area, and it just makes the image the color that it should be versus looking too green or too orange. So that's what I use Lightroom for a lot.
Okay, very good. So that was 3 of them. Is there one last one that you can't live without?
Oh, I like so many. Okay.
Well, how do you use so many? Because like once you get to like, I mean, at least I'm imagining myself doing this. Once you get to 3 or 4, I mean, isn't that like what else could you want to do?
Oh gosh, no. Okay,
Really?
so yeah. So they all do different things, and again, it depends on what I'm trying to do. So like I like Touch Retouch for removing things. I like Airbrush, the app Airbrush, for blurring my background or creating a bokeh background. That's what the word they use. It
Yeah,
creates a
that's the
beautiful, nice
portrait
blur.
mode on iPhone.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
which I think is better than actually using portrait mode.
Yes.
And I like to use Face App if I'm trying to, like, if somebody came in without makeup. I actually talk to my clients about this, and I just let them know, like, hey, be totally comfortable. Are you okay with me taking pictures of your face? They might say, I didn't wear makeup today. And then I'll just say, well, don't worry about
No
it because we can
problem.
always add some in.
Yeah.
So I'll use Face App to add like a little bit of lashes. Lashes are the best.
yeah.
Correct like a little bit of uneven lip color or blush. So it depends on what I'm trying to do.
So interesting. So interesting. Okay. So that's probably all the listeners can handle as they listen on their way to the salon. Okay. So basically there's an app to do anything. I guess I didn't realize. I've definitely heard of Face App, but I didn't realize that you can. I'm looking on my phone now. I have things like Splice, Cut Story, Vigo Video. I don't even know. I haven't used some of these in years. Oh, Facetune from back in the day. Remember Facetune? Is
Yep.
that still a thing? People still use Facetune?
Some people still use it for blur and stuff. I prefer not to.
PicStitch, SquareFit. Some of these are probably old.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, you
Video-
have so many apps.
Yeah, but I don't even use them. In fact, it on the next to the little app icons on my phone, they all have the kind of download button because it's been so long that they've all been kind of scuttled into the cloud, so they don't take up room on my phone. That's how long it's
Yeah.
been since I've used some of these.
Yeah.
All right. So very interesting. All right. So those are the new ones that you've determined work for just about anything that you need. That's awesome. What about video? We haven't talked much about video yet. We've focused on hair pictures,
Yeah.
but we keep getting told by people who are experts, in quotes, that videos are better. Reels and videos get more activity on social media. How do you use video for a hair picture? You still want to use Instagram and some people on TikTok to be your portfolio and to attract new clients, but we also want to post videos. So how do you reconcile those two things?
So statistically, if you look it up, you can Google it. Video catches the eye more than photos do. That's just how it is. So I think we started off with photos because that's what we were capable of. Now it has transitioned a little bit more into video. However, photos are still important. They haven't gone away. So right now, it's a little bit of a split. Like I think right now we're still trying to figure out like where the future is going and like is it going to go more into video? Because at one point we thought photos were going to be gone. We thought it was completely going to go into video. But now there really is kind of a place for each of those things. So video is really important for sure because it's able to tell a story more than a photo.
Okay. So how does the average hairdresser use video and at the same time accomplish her goal of having a lookbook, if you will, on Instagram to attract clients?
Well, because a video takes people a little bit more through the journey of A to Z, where their client started versus where their client's ending, and also the middle of the process. A photo, you can do that, but you're going to have to use a lot of photos and you're missing a lot of information in between them. So a video, I think, can kind of get your story across a little bit, whether you're sharing a before and after, how your client's feeling, the conversation you had that day.
Okay. Requires more work, no?
It does. It can, yeah.
Okay, so from from there, I'm now going to go into the question where I write down questions in advance. I do my research on you, Shannon Demont, and then I write down the Shannon Demont questions. And now we're to a question that I've been waiting to ask you. Tell us about, it's actually not a question, it's more like a statement. It's a request. Tell us about the phone call that you had with Meta. And I know about this only because I went on to your Instagram, but you had a phone call with Meta and you got some insider information, if you will. First of all, tell us, how did you get on the phone with Meta?
So I'm not fully 100% sure, to be completely honest with you. I think, this is my theory, is that I had a video go viral a year or two ago and it got 10 million views. And when that video went viral, I was all of a sudden added and invited to all of these things by Meta. So there's groups, there's masterminds, there's all sorts of crazy things. Some of them I took part in and some of them I didn't. So one day I just went onto Instagram and up at the top I got a notification that said Meta would like to have a phone call with you. Are you interested? And they're doing this with a lot of people that are creators, content creators. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, why not? Of course, I'm going to take that up. So I scheduled a call and they basically said, we're going to call you at some point. They wouldn't tell me when until the day of. They finally reached out to me one day. And I think it was like a couple weeks later. Like it took a while. They reached out to me one day and they said, okay, we're going to call you and we're going to chat for about 15 minutes today. Make sure your phone's ready. So luckily, I actually had a full day that day, so I was a little bit nervous. Luckily, they called me at a time that I was able to answer and talk. And the person that I talked to was phenomenal. He kind of walked me through my profile and what I should be doing, what I should get rid of, how I can figure out what my ideal times to post are, what's working best right now. And then he sent it all to me in an email. So
oh my gosh,
it was really amazing. Yeah, it was a really incredible call.
Okay, so what was the purpose of them calling you? To give you best practices? Or was there some, I assume that most of the times I hear about things like this, it's the company trying to get like a little focus group of one, feedback on new features or something like that. Did he not ask about any of those?
He was encouraging me to get onto Threads and to make sure I'm posting there because they're going to monetize it.
Yes, they want creators to go onto Threads, and Threads is the Meta's version of X-Twitter, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So he did not tell me what his motive was. I have no idea still, but if I was guessing, I would guess that it's to get onto Threads and to be using it.
That's what I would guess as well. I know that Threads had a big start. I think they had a few million people sign up early on. I haven't heard about it since then, but I don't tweet and I don't thread. So I don't know. I'm not the guy to say. Threads could be massively popular, but definitely it's the goal of the company Meta to get creators onto Threads, so then the consumers go on Threads too. Okay, so did you immediately go onto Threads and sign up Shannon Demont on Threads?
So I actually already was on Threads. I was never a Twitter girl or ex-girl, whatever you want to call it. And when Threads came out, I liked it. So I signed up for it and I have been posting regularly on it. And I actually really enjoy it. It statistically, again, if you look this up, it has not done as well as it did at the beginning. However, I am finding a little niche there. And I'm finding a lot of information that I'm not finding on Instagram. So, yeah, a lot of business advice that I wouldn't have known otherwise, a lot of social media marketing, a lot of people wanting to connect. I found a group of people, and I'm going to go to a conference for powerhouse women that I found on Threads. So I think there's actually some real gems there. And I know at the beginning of Instagram, it wasn't that popular either. And slowly it became more popular. So I don't know if that's Threads potential. I'm not sure. But right now, I think it's a little gem.
Okay, so back to the phone call. Tell us what he said. What best practices on Instagram? What do we do? What are we supposed to be doing?
He gave me a lot of information, but he said that our posts we should be posting 3 to 5 times a week. And a lot of people are asking why 3 to 5 times a week. So I asked him that. And he said because when you're posting more than that, you're starting to lose followers. And what I'm taking from that is that when you're posting a lot, you are creating noise, and Instagram, the algorithm does not like that. So they're saying this person is just creating mindless crap.
Got it.
We want to get rid of it. So then they stop showing you. That's my guess. That's what I'm thinking.
I was really hoping, by the way, that you were going to say that he said post once every 2 months, and then I would feel better about my Instagram activity.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I was hoping for that too. Not gonna lie. But 2 to 3, I was posting like 2 times a day. So for him to say 2 to 3 times a week, I was like, oh, this is so much better.
That's what the phone call was about. It was about Shannon Demont. You are creating noise on our platform. Please stop.
Cut it out. So it was 3 to 5 times a week you should be posting.
Okay.
He brought me through my insights, and he showed me what times I should be posting at based on when my followers are there, which you can find in your insights.
Yeah.
He told me about threads, about how they're monetizing it. He also told me, he gave me a lot of information. Hashtags are going away. So
hashtags are going away.
Yeah, they haven't completely gotten rid of them.
Okay.
But they're moving into keywords. So me, like OG on Instagram, is thinking I got to post 30 hashtags every single post because that's just what we did.
Right.
He said no. Now our content is getting prioritized into keywords. So if you are talking about hair photography in your post and somebody searches up at the top hair photography, they're going to categorize you as first versus somebody searching a hashtag. And they're doing that on threads also.
So it's more akin to SEO on the internet versus hashtags, and which makes a ton of sense because when you're creating a website and you want someone to find you, you simply create the website with the content that you want people to search for. You don't put these silly little hashtags at the bottom. And so hashtags, if you think about them, are so like version 1.0 of social media. So it makes all the sense in the world that they're going to mine the actual caption for words that they can use to categorize the content.
I thought that was really interesting. So he still suggested using hashtags, but like 3 to 8 of them. And I think it's based on what you didn't post. So let's say I'm talking about a client, but I never actually put that I'm a hairstylist. Then you would use the hashtag. But you also want to make it a hashtag of something under 10 million hashtags, he said. So like hairstylist, if you look it up, like more niche down. So combine them instead.
Like MA hairstylist, like Massachusetts hairstylist, something like that. Or even Boston or whatever your city is, something more defined.
Yeah, and where people can actually find you. That makes sense anyways.
Right.
Yep.
Very interesting. Okay, what else?
Something that he talked about was that the best practices for audio were using actually your own original audio. Yeah, I don't think I have written down why he said that.
So, in other words, somebody within the video speaking or something like that versus using Beyonce's latest song.
Yes, and they're going to push it up more. Like the algorithm will push it up more if you're using your own original audio versus using one that they suggest for you.
Got it. So you need to write and produce your own song in order to be pushed up.
Yep.
Just kidding. Okay.
Getting really creative.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Those are 2 huge things. What else did he say?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so another thing that he shared was that static posts are okay, but the things that are doing the best are carousels, reels. So he didn't say it, but he was kind of saying, like, ditch the static posts, like just do more carousels and reels because those are pushed up in the algorithm.
And a carousel that's a slider.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And lives have their own algorithm. So they beat everything else. So if you get
Really?
on live, that then, and people come and watch your live, that then prioritizes your stories in their feed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so you kind of want to pop up as some of the first stories, right? But you can't really like control that except
Right.
for when you do lives. That's how you do that. So
Got it.
those were some really awesome tips that he shared with me. Yeah, it was a cool call.
Very, very cool. Okay, so you've got some insider information. We've given it to the listeners, and some of those things are good. I think some of the listeners are going to be like, I feel pressure to post every day or even multiple times a day. Now I don't feel as much pressure. Maybe I can just prioritize the best content that I have versus, feeling like I have to regurgitate old stuff. Did he say anything about that? Like reposting old things?
He didn't say anything about reposting. I always like say just do that because that's what I do. If you look at my feed, half of my things that I post are reposted. I don't have to
Yeah.
keep recreating the wheel. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will take something that I posted 3 months ago that did well and I'll repost it. So he didn't say anything about that, but he did talk about engagement and how to get people engaging. So he said people like to share their input a lot. So when we're creating posts, a lot of times we're just like giving them information and giving them information. So he said when you have a topic to talk about the topic for a second, like kind of like a title or like I can't remember the word for it, but your first intro sentence, like, I'm going to share a tip about hair photography. Then I could say, but first, what are questions that you have about it? So instead of just like throwing everything out there and saying, here's my 3 tips, I can then get them to engage by asking them questions. And then they're going to see it up there first instead of having to read the whole thing because a lot of people won't read your whole caption. So that was a really good piece of advice. And polls,
Polls.
like doing the polls that they have. When you create a poll, you can't share it to Facebook, which is kind of frustrating because I create my content for Instagram and Facebook or like try to swap them. And polls do really well with engagement because, again, they're getting people to interact with you. So anytime somebody likes, shares, or comments, they're interacting with you. And also DMs is a big one too. So is there a way that you can get people to DM you? Whether it be like sometimes I'll say DM me a word if you want like to know more information about hair photography. That's vague, but something like that. So think of ways that you can get your audience to have a conversation with you and develop a relationship and connection with you.
That's really smart. I like that. Behind the Chair, they've got a monster account in our industry, and they do a really good job of asking questions that people are interested in. And they get thousands of comments. And it's very interesting. I think people enjoyed going on there and giving their input. And I think it's very interesting for some people to go on there and just read the input that others have. And every hairstylist can do this, right? Especially if they have an account that's geared towards the clients. They could ask, what questions do you have about hair, right? They can ask all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, and people watching, they're less interested in consuming at this point. People are more interested in sharing. And that's why we have so many people becoming educators and whatnot, because people want to share things.
Right. Yeah, that's that's a great insight. Great insight. Okay, what about TikTok? Did he say we're about to destroy TikTok?
Nope. That word was not mentioned once.
I know, I'm kidding.
I kind of wish it was, though.
Are you on TikTok? Do you like TikTok?
I am on TikTok, and I do like TikTok.
Okay. You spend a lot of time on TikTok, or do you repurpose?
No.
You repurpose? You don't?
I don't.
Do you repurpose content from Instagram
do.
to TikTok? Yeah.
Yep.
And does it do okay?
It does okay, yeah.
Okay. There you go. It
Yep.
does okay. I mean, I think the reality is, unless you want to start another job, which would be running TikTok, separately of your other jobs, which are working behind the chair with your clients, actually making money that supports you, and then running Instagram, which takes a lot of time, but it does support your job behind the chair. Repurposing content is probably a pretty good way to at least have a presence on TikTok.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like dependent on what your goals are, again, and where your clientele is. If you're working on 80-year-old women in the United States, it doesn't make sense to use TikTok. If you're trying to be an educator, if you're marketing to 18-year-olds, then yeah, you should be on TikTok. Me, myself, this is why I have a VA. We discuss our marketing plan, and then she goes and helps me execute it. So she will be the one that takes my Instagram videos or whatever content I create and then post it on all of the platforms, because I am, as an educator, trying to appeal to those people.
Yeah.
But this is going to depend for each person. You know, if you don't have clients on TikTok or you're not trying to get that type of clientele, then why would you market yourself there? So, you know, you don't have to do all the things. I think a lot of hairstylists are like, oh, why do I have to do all the things? Like, you don't if it doesn't make sense for you. If it makes sense for you, then do it.
Yeah, I love that. That's great practical advice, and maybe helps people hone in where they should use their limited resources. The primary one of which is time. Okay, so I want to talk more about the VA. I want to talk about the specifics of how you educate your people, and which you're now doing full time, which is cool. And so would you come back for a second episode, because we're already at an hour and I don't want to rush to the end of this without having talked about some of the more important things.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
I can definitely talk about that.
We'll do that. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good.